sex and species in the War on Terror. Part of what I trace is how affect and discourses around human and animal intimate relationships, particularly around dogs, are part of making and unmaking human and animal subjectivities. So both Meredith and I are working at the intersections of feminist studies and critical animal studies, posthumanist theory. So this is very much a piece in progress, part of my dissertation. I very much welcome you to think with me, to ask questions, help me continue in my process. So without further ado, in this paper, I analyze an Iams dog food commercial that features a U.S. female soldier returning home to her dog. Oops. Hasn't even seen the commercial Iams Keep Love Strong. It might come up when you're watching Hulu or, okay. So it's very much a kind of constant, repetitive frame that came out, so maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. So I examined the narrative, imagery, and public reaction to the commercial. I argue that the dog holds a special role in the narrative of female homecoming. The female soldier's role in the military has moved her outside of heterofemininity. I argue that the Iams dog commercial functions to fold the female soldier back into the norms of heterodomesticity, serving to sanitize war by mobilizing discourses of love, puppy love, national love, and familial love. Interestingly, although the commercial works to shore up the boundaries of heteronormativity, I argue that it also acts as a site of queer perversion, where the female-dog relationship is actually haunted by a specter of perverse and non-normative cross-species sexual love. The Iams dog commercial called Welcome Home is part of a national ad campaign called Keep Love Strong. So my PowerPoint's out of order. The commercial depicts a U.S. soldier, Dawn, and her dog, Rocky, meeting upon Dog's return from war. Dawn is a young, conventionally attractive woman whose appearance is racially ambiguous. She's outfitted in military camouflage, a large jacket, and baggy military jeans, her medium-length hair pulled back in a ponytail. Rocky is an Irish wolfhound, a very large dog with a long, silver, shaggy coat. So I'm going to skip ahead for a moment. I don't know why this is out of order. Sorry, my apologies. Trying to find you the commercial. Hold on, you're getting a preview here. Okay, so I can't find the commercial embedded. Bear with me for 1 second. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. So here's Iams pictured with Rocky upon the initial homecoming. This is Iams' Facebook page where they actually solicited feedback from audiences to vote on, for real people to submit videos of what represented to them strong love between a human and a pet. So a woman named Dawn submitted a video of her and her Irish wolfhound meeting, and then users voted and selected this as one of their top commercials, and then Iams remade this as a commercial. So it's called Keep Love Strong, Welcome Home, the official name of the commercial. So hopefully this works.
Rocky had no idea why Dawn was gone for so long, but he'd wait for her forever, for any reason, and would always be there with the biggest welcome home. For a love this strong, Dawn only feeds him Iams. Compared to other leading brands, it has 50% more animal protein to help keep Rocky's body as strong as a love that never fades, if he ever lets her leave again. Iams, keep love strong.
So the Iams commercial is called Welcome Home, as you just saw. It's part of a 2012 national ad campaign called Keep Love Strong. The commercial, as I said, depicts Dawn and her dog meeting. So traditional scenes of soldiers' homecomings are often deployed to shore up the boundaries of heteronormativity. These are the boundaries of the nation and the body politic during war. Images of family reuniting, particularly of lovers reuniting, evoke sentiments of warmth, nationalism, and celebration. In these traditional scenes, the wife has maintained the domestic sphere in her husband's absence, a sign of her love for both him and the nation, perhaps accompanied by children and pets. Such scenes are thoroughly heteronormative. The soldier who represents the heroic hegemonic masculinity of the nation returns to the domesticity of his family. The representation of Dawn and Rocky in the commercial evokes this heteronationalist domestic homecoming scene. In relation to the traditional homecoming scene, Dawn, the female soldier, assumes the place of the returning male soldier, and the waiting dog assumes the place of the waiting wife. So here we see Rocky had no idea why Dawn was gone for so long, but he would wait for her forever. So there is some animal subjectivity that emerges here, not knowing, right? But still this kind of strong love. He would wait for her forever. We see the same rhetoric again reinvoked in discourses around military spouse. I'd wait for you forever. The commercial thus sutures heteronormativity that may seem threatened by war. So when you have the female soldier away, particularly from the maybe the man at home, this is again assuming kind of a heteronormative relationship, there's some kind of fear of her queerness being outside of norms of heterodomesticity. So I argue that the commercial transposes the normative script of domestic romance that positions a woman waiting for her husband into one about a dog waiting for its owner, a scene of, quote, puppy love. There are no people or family members in the commercial, although one frame of the commercial does show a partial arm and a hand that reaches out to open the door to let Rocky to get out and greet Dawn. Whoever opens the door is not identified or incorporated into the narrative of the commercial. According to Iams, the commercial is based on a true story about a soldier named Andrea and her dog Monster. So this is the people who submitted the video I was telling you about. The quote real life example of the commercial is based on thus contains a husband, a wife, and their dog. Andrea's husband, who actually wrote a blog post about the commercial, though, is completely absent, other than this one shot framing a hand. So it's a conspicuous absence then in the commercial of any other family member than the woman and the dog she's returning to. So dog returning to Rocky, I argue, reinforces the sentimental scene of military homecoming without disrupting normative gendered configurations of the domestic. A female soldier returning to a waiting husband, an alleged nurturer coming back from war to a husband who remains in the domestic, might subvert the traditional heteronormative framework. The female soldier returning to her dog, master to pet, upholds heteronormative formations and a normative hierarchy of what Mel Chen would call the animacy hierarchy, so a proper relationship between humans and animals that's always based in race and class and sex significations. So the commercial returns the female soldier to the domestic realm under a normative gender order of affective and reproductive labor, suggesting that the practice that Dawn will bring her of feeding Rocky will bring her to the appropriate nurturing role. The gender logic of the commercial thus positions a woman's return as her success in caring for her love object, though here her love object is a dog and not a man. So now I turn to discuss puppy love and war. In keeping with the advertising campaign slogan, "Keep Love Strong," the commercial uses discourses of love to frame Dawn and Rocky's relationship. Keep love strong. The logic of the commercial suggests that Dawn loves Rocky, Rocky loves Dawn loves the nation, and Iams sustains this love. Iams will keep love strong between owner and animal strong despite distance, despite war. The commercial deploys and mobilizes various representations of love, including love for the military and the nation, as well as puppy love. The imperative of Iams' slogan, "Keep Love Strong," thus generalizes to multiple forms of love that must be kept strong. It also frames the affect of love, one associated with softness, with a certain feminine frame, through a discourse of strength. Iams' slogan is one of a confluence of significations about puppy love and the military, allowing love to remain sentimental and endearing, while also being something that is not just an intimate love between a pet and an owner, but between an individual and her country. Iams frames Dawn and Rocky's relationship through the terms of familial love. Because current affective economies, what Sir Ahmed would call affective economies, how affect circulates and gains currency in the circulation, I argue that affective economies of American pet love extend the heteronormative nuclear family beyond species lines. So Dawn and Rocky's relationship can be folded into heteronormative terms under this framework of pet love that also Heteronormativity writes about in this kind of rising, actually billion-dollar industry within the US. So Iams' Facebook page positions Rocky as Dawn's child. It says, oh, look at the mother coming home, and many commenters on the Facebook page also re-invoke this kind of maternalistic familial relationship between the two. This representations present Dawn under terms of maternalism, as appropriate nationalist, heteronormative, loving, maternal subject. These frames of love mediate, as I argued in the introduction, the queerness of the female soldier as killing machine by framing her as kind and loving domestic nurturer. These frames thus return the female soldier to the proper place of the feminine, the domestic sphere. The commercial uses a representation of Dawn and Rocky to sanitize the complicated affects surrounding war. Representations of military homecoming figures, such as depicted in the Iams commercial, evoke sentimental affects of pride, nationalism, honor, loyalty, fraternity, love of the nation. These sentimental affects are haunted by more ugly feelings, what Sian Guy calls ugly feelings, right, related to the military affects of mourning, melancholia, sadness, fear, and anger. So puppy love also evokes sentimental affects, emotions like love, loyalty, compassion, companionship, devotion, happiness, joy, unconditional love. Well, it is also haunted by ugly affects, death, loss, mourning, melancholy. So the Iams commercial negotiates these very messy affects and forefronts the positive affects to efface those negative ones that would undo a seamless, joyful homecoming narrative. So the scene depicting Dawn's meeting with Rocky depends on sentimentalizing her homecoming. A woman coming home to her dog effaces the realities of soldiers coming home from killing. As a female soldier, Dawn encompasses the contradictions of military ideology that contain an imperative of violence and hatred of the other through a framework of love for the nation and for the fellow citizen, whether human or animal. As a woman, Dawn signifies love, compassion, and nurturance, and as a soldier, she signifies strength, the nation, and violence. The commercial allows Dawn to emerge as a war hero and heroine, while simultaneously being recuperated as a loving, nurturing, caring figure. In effect, the representation feminizes Dawn's subjectivity as a soldier, providing the affective frames under which she can be folded into these appropriate norms of heteronormative femininity. The commercial's representation of Dawn may thus serve to reduce anxieties raised by the possibility she has been masculinized by war. Her loving return to her dog signifies her willingness to return to appropriate feminine role, as I've argued. The Iams commercial thus mobilizes puppy love to present a scene from a homecoming scene from war that is sanitized, sentimental, hopeful, endearing, heartwarming, returning the humane and human soldier to a civilized and domestic life. So I now shift the scene to a moment of queering puppy love. I argue that even as the interaction between Dawn and Rocky may be folded into sentimental and heteronormative representations of war, the intimacy between the two also emerges as a potential site of queer perversion. The final scene between Rocky and Dawn becomes increasingly intimate, as you saw. Rocky rises onto his hind legs, coming eye to eye with Dawn as he licks her mouth, before tumbling her to the ground. Rocky's head rests on Dawn's chest as his legs splay out, straddling her hips. His paws extend on both sides of her shoulders as he is hugging her, while her arms wrap around his neck, pulling his head to her face. The camera fades out from showing Rocky lying on top of Dawn, and an image of Dawn and Rocky looking into each other's eyes takes place. Both images fade into each other so that the commercial shows both Rocky and Dawn lying on Dawn, and Dawn and Rocky peering into each other's eyes. The commercial then shows Dawn and Rocky standing up face to face again with Rocky on his hind legs. Closing was showing an embrace between the two, as Dawn lowers her nose and Rocky licks her. Sentimental music plays as voiceover says, "Keep love strong." So the commercial evokes scenes of sexual love between human and animal, particularly at the end in this moment where Rocky lies splayed-legged over Dawn and licks her face. In mimicking the traditional military homecoming, the scene also evokes sexual intimacy, cueing sexual significations in the soldier-dog embrace. Often when we hear of these sentimental military homecomings, part of the narrative is a soldier coming home to have sex, right, with the wife or girlfriend or whatever. Again, this is through the heteronormative narrative. So I argue that the commercial also presents Rocky as a stand-in for the domestic love left behind. Rather than the male soldier returning to the waiting wife with implications of homecoming sex, the female soldier returns home to the dog, who lays the length of her body on her and straddles her. This representation suggests a transgression of the normative terms of heteronormativity under human exceptionalism. Further, the commercial's use of an Irish wolfhound, a very large dog that can stand eye to eye with Don, is a very specific move that enables Rocky to be elevated past the role of the submissive and loyal family pet. In this move, I argue Rocky is anthropomorphized as he stands on his hind legs and gazes into her eyes. In this eye-to-eye and subject-to-subject encounter, Rocky becomes a subject equal to Don. The use of a male dog further anthropomorphizes Rocky under the terms of heteronormativity to position Rocky as Don's awaiting lover, perhaps. So I argue that this is a queer haunting, and that it's this very boundary mediating between puppy love and bestiality. So to unpack this boundary and understand how the general public is responding, I look at comments on the Facebook page and on the general circulating in public discourse on the internet to trace how other people understand the commercial. So as I've argued, the commercial contains contradictory elements of familial sanitized love and romantic sexual love. The sexual intimacy that the commercial evokes may be contained under its heteronormative logic, especially under pet love in 21st century US economies. So perhaps normative Western frames of puppy love sanitize the cross-species intimacy and sexual cues in the commercial. The sexual signification latent in the commercial indicate that these terms of puppy love render the potentially destabilizing image as innocent. Public comments about the commercial reveal the multiple readings that the commercial invites. Some online commentators frame the commercial as, quote, gross and, quote, inappropriate, an expression of a pervert sexual interaction, while others frame it as, quote, innocent and, quote, darling, an expression of unconditional love between dog and master. Many of the commentators claim that Keep Love Strong commercial represents a sexual boundary crossing between human and animal and argue this evokes scenes of bestiality that are, quote, inappropriate, needless, and bordering on gross. Commentators emphasize the sexual cues in the commercial, as one writes, quote, a woman coming back from war to her giant dog, and after a quick hello, we see the pair getting down and dirty. That's right. Iams, it appears, are saying that you should love your dog so much that you should make love to it in broad daylight in the middle of your drive. Unquote. Oh wait, not unquote. Iams want us to keep love strong as a giant dog's erection, clearly. Unquote. These comments make the sexual intimacy between Don and Rocky suggested in the commercial hyper-visible. Other commentators, however, contest these readings of bestiality by claiming that the commercial is an endearing and darling, that there's nothing gross about it, framing the commercial as simply evidence of familial and puppy love to render the interaction as innocent. Positioning Don as Rocky's owner and, quote, mommy further glosses over the sexual nature of Rocky straddling Don. These comments also use normalized conventions of every dog owner's puppy love to render the interaction innocent. One commenter writes, so cuddling with your dog is inappropriate? Guess I'm inappropriate then, unquote. These comments depend on reproducing a sanitized frame through which to understand puppy love, a normative and unexceptional frame of love that cannot be sexual, so it's mutually exclusive. The comments depend on and reproduce the performative boundary, thus, between the maternal and the sexual, such that Don's maternal love as good female soldier and hetero-feminine subject cannot be considered perversely sexual, as such a representation would further consolidate the queerness of the female soldier. The frames of love used in ideologies about the military and pet ownership thus reveal the work that is necessary to contain love that is messy, love that is grounded on hate, killing, and violence, and sanitizes and renders normative love between pet and owner. So to summarize the claims I've made in this paper, I argue that the representation of Don returning home inaugurates a new scene of homecoming. Rather than being peripheral, the dog is the central figure to whom the soldier returns. In this revised scene of homecoming, the role of the spouse is reduced while the role of the dog is enhanced. The dog serves as a substitute for spouse. The dog emerges as a redomesticator, and this redomestication includes great intimacy, such that puppy love returns a female soldier into appropriate norms of heterofemininity. This centrality of the dog means such scenes always evoke and are haunted by a queer cross-species intimacy that is contained within yet persistently haunts normative discourses of puppy love. So that's my paper. Thank you for listening and for bearing with my technical difficulties. So I just wanted to situate this really quickly since Chelsea's not here and I might have another minute or two. Within my larger dissertation, and so I'm really tracing how discourses of puppy love circulate in many different iterations in the War on Terror. So what I contrast this kind of image and the production of humane and human American puppy love is with the simultaneous and co-constitutive production of Iraqis, Afghanis, and Middle Eastern people as particularly hateful and inhumane towards dogs. So I trace public discourses about killing campaigns that are part of a public health program in Iraq, for example, and Western news discourse that positions these as so inhumane, and this is part of what I argue making the inhuman Iraqi. And so part of what I'm tracing is extending Judith Butler's work in Frames of War, and I trace how actually dogs emerged as a technology of precarity and facialization. So where Middle Eastern people are defaced, rendered killable, I also trace how dogs are folded in affectively to this war, either to shore up the boundaries of heteronormativity, or, for example, I also trace discourses around military working dogs, and trace how in military policy they've actually been given a right to life. They are now canine members of the armed forces. They used to be classified as equipment. And so what I'm tracing is really a shifting boundary of human and animal and how affect is so central to this. So I also look at scenes of people coming home to their dogs that they've left behind. And I do think it's very much an affective technology that we can use animal studies and feminist studies to reveal how species is very central to representations of war, precisely because of this kind of sentimentality of love, puppy love. And this is to say, I love dogs, I cuddle with my dogs, but I think love is very messy, and it's this moment where we can unpack the messiness of these affects. So that's just to frame this project a little more. And I also look at discourses about rescuing dogs from Iraq and Afghanistan from a program, for example, called Operation Baghdad Pups, which I argue is an example of, following Gayatri Spivak, white women saving brown dogs from brown men. And so this is all about puppy love and who's humane and human and who's inhumane and inhuman. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.